Want to spice up your anniversary, honeymoon, or just time away from the kids? Book your next exciting Mexican vacation or cruise at Desire Resorts. Begin your journey to paradise at manwhorepod.com/desire.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
Shout out to all the Santa sluts, Krampus cosplayers, and horny elves. This is Billy Procida, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. Okay, everyone, how you doing? Merry Christmas, if that was a thing you did. Happy holidays, if it was something else. And, I hope it was a good Tuesday if you just see December 25th as a nice paid day off of work. But we are back here at the Man Whore Podcast, and this is a show where I typically talk to women I've hooked up with about sex, dating, and why we didn't work out. However, this week's special guest is not one of my former flames, although we are just both a couple of sex-positive sluts out there. Comedian and actress Rachel Green is on the show, and I cannot wait to share her with y'all in a bit. But first, no show dates, people. No show dates to announce as of this moment. However, I have a very big announcement coming up in just a couple weeks. And you're going to want to be on my mailing list to be the first to find out. And yes, this does have to do with some potential performances in 2019. Head on over to manwhorepod.com, sign up for that mailing list. Don't forget to include your zip code. It's important. And stay tuned for that. I'm also hoping that I'm also hoping to announce ManwhoreCon 2019 dates by the end of next month. That is the current and present goal. Also, shout out to C&D. You know who you are. Thank you so much for that wonderful Christmas present for the Southwest gift card. That covered my flight for Las Vegas next month when I'm going to go to the AVN Awards. That's such a huge help. It's like kind of exactly what I wanted. And I just want to say thank you so much for that. It was super kind, super generous of both of you. Y'all are wonderful. Christmas was good here at the Procida household. I even shared some of our Christmas morning on Patreon with my patrons with that daily video I've been making. And that's been fun. It's been cute. Got some good stuff. I got a lot of whiskey. I got 3 bottles of whiskey. My mom got me a bottle of whiskey. My dad got me a bottle of whiskey. My Secret Santa got me a bottle of whiskey. So I think that means I'm an alcoholic. I think I'm going to go to a meeting. I don't know what that says about me. Maybe it just means like I'm always posting on Twitter and Instagram about how tipsy or drunk with the brown juice I am. No, I do not have my Instagram back. Still working on it. But I want to get to your emails, people. Your emails. Oh boy. What do we got this week? What do we got? All right. This one comes from Holly. Hi, Billy. Hope you're having a great week, and I hope you don't mind me emailing. I've recently stumbled upon your podcast and have started binge listening. I'm currently up to December of 2015, so I still have a fair bit to go. I just wanted to let you know that hearing you and your guests speak is really helping me to broaden my mind and change my perspective on a few things. I think of myself as a pretty open-minded person, not in comparison to your guests, but still I think it takes a lot to shock me. However, I certainly have been guilty of having a slightly unhealthy attitude towards sex and my self-confidence, something that listening to your podcast is helping me to change, so thank you for that. I'm really loving the podcast and hope that in the future episodes, I hear that you have found love. Although writing that is making me cringe slightly, I usually keep the soppy stuff to Valentine's cards. All the best from across the Atlantic, Holly. Oh, well, Holly, thank you for that. You're such a trooper if you've been binging all the way from the beginning. I honestly can't imagine re-listening to those first 50 to 70 episodes. But hey, it only gets better from there. So happy binging. And I'm glad that you're starting to expand your thoughts on things. What's interesting is that since December 2015 and since I started the podcast, Even my views on certain things have been evolving and changing. So, I hope you'll get to hear that. I mean, Jesus, y'all remember when I used to get angry about demisexuals? Oh boy, that was a waste of my time, wasn't it? So thanks for writing in, and don't be a stranger. Let us all know when you finished. All right, this next one comes from Will. He writes, Dear Billy, I just wanted to ask a few questions about a situation I'm in. I started dating, and I've been dating, I use the term loosely, 3 girls. We're going to call them women, because that's a little fun thing I learned, to not call grown women girls, because we don't usually always call the boys boys. But hey, it doesn't matter. I've been dating 3 girls, B, J, and E. I went out with B, and we had sex on the first date. We talked about planning to go on another date, but haven't locked it down due to my schedule. I then went out on a date with J, and we had talked a lot about planning on having sex before the date. We didn't have sex on the date, but planned on having a second date, and also have not locked it down due to scheduling. So with B and J, there are plans for second dates. Then throw in E. I went on a first date with her, and we just really clicked. I like her the most, honestly, and could see myself being exclusive with her. In this time, I've been on about 3 dates with her, and we have definite plans for more. So I guess I'm wondering, what do I owe to B and J as far as being respectful? It seems like a consensus between a lot of my friends I've talked to, both male and female, that ghosting or not responding is an acceptable way of showing that you're not interested if it is on the first date or if you haven't even made it to the first date. However, in this case, there are plans for other dates with B and J. I know I like them and think they're cool and would absolutely hook up and go out with them. I just feel weird because I clearly like E much more. And I've only been dating E for 3 dates, and I think it would be jumping way too much into it to have a defining the relationship talk this early. So is this a situation where I should cut it off with B and J and go all in on E? If so, is ghosting acceptable at this point, or is doing a sort of less frequent communication acceptable? A small caveat, they do not initiate virtual communication with me very often. Or should I continue to date B and J? I do like them, just not as much as E. On top of that, I tend to find that I'm more confident and just successful if I'm dating more women. It's as if when I try to focus on one extra special person, shit hits the fan. In fact, I find that despite my personal discomfort dating multiple people, it's personally protective. My personal discomfort stems... I don't get that. I find that despite my personal discomfort dating multiple people, it's personally protective. Okay. My personal discomfort stems from concern over lying by omission, as the don't ask, don't tell part of it comes up. For all I know, they could all be dating numerous guys, but I'm still uncomfortable if it isn't explicitly stated, although there hasn't been a DTR talk. It seems like y'all poly people are very explicit about stating that you're poly. I've tried to be sometimes, but I found that it can sour the relationship for people who are more don't ask, don't tell. And I'm really wondering how explicit about seeing other people one should be this early in the relationship. If I was explicitly asked, I would answer explicitly, but I'd rather not volunteer unwanted information that could hurt someone. Thanks, Will. Well, there's a lot here, and I don't think I'm going to go too far into the whole you feel more confident when you're dating multiple women, even though you're uncomfortable dating multiple women. I don't have the degrees to go into that. But let's see. I would say you should do a combination of whatever it is you want to do and nothing. You don't owe anyone, including E, anything right now. You can continue to date or not date any combination of these women, although it seems like you're using the term dating very loosely here, of course. The only time you need to disclose or potentially end anything is if you A, want to stop going on dates or hooking up with anyone, or B, when one of them asks you point blank if you're seeing anyone else. I understand and, applaud your desire to be transparent and honest with your present partners. Wonderful. But in this day and age, when you're out dating people, sometimes multiple overlapping first, second, and third dates, there is an assumed presumption that both parties are seeing other people or pursuing other people. You know, back in the day, you used to only be able to go on a test run with one person at a time. And you couldn't even go on a date with someone else if you were in the early stages with another person. You know, like you could go on a first date with Allison and you go on a second date with Allison, but you wouldn't be able to go on a first date with Becky and still be testing out with Allison. You know, like you couldn't go on a second date with Allison on Friday and a first date with Becky on Saturday. That was a no-no back in the day. So, but in the present dating culture, overlapping all this stuff is not only acceptable, but assumed. You know, it's perfectly acceptable to have, you know, several balls in the air while you figure out which, if any, you want to pursue romantically. You may find yourself actively or passively letting some of these balls drop. That can be through ghosting. That can be through less communication. That can be through actively saying you're not interested in getting together anymore. You may not, but you're not lying by omission. You're dating. Now, it's also perfectly acceptable for you to ask if they're seeing other people in an effort to then disclose what your dating status is. I've been asked that quite a bit. I've asked that a bit. It can backfire, or it can be as mundane a topic as the weather. You can always start the conversation for your own comfort, but, you know, be warned that it may show poor judgment on your part, especially with someone like, you know, E, who you actually want to date in a romantic manner. Because if you're defining the relationship when there is no relationship, it doesn't look good. So be careful with that. You know, you don't want to be one of a million guys who jumps the gun on what is this when there is no this yet. So don't overthink this one, Will. All right, you don't know the intentions of B and J, so you don't want to assume they want anything that they haven't expressed or gotten from you. This may be evidenced by them not being all over you to go out again. For all you know, they just want to fuck you. Or they may not want to see you again unless, you know, they're bored and have a super empty weekend. Or they might be madly in love with you. You don't know. It's just too soon to tell. So, you know, I hope that helps, dude. But, like, you know, just don't overthink this one, okay? It's a lot simpler than you think. And if you want to send me your comments, your questions, your booby pictures, send that on over to manwhorepod@gmail.com. Now, this is, of course, the last episode of 2018. And the January slate of episodes are actually really fucking badass. I'm really excited about them. It's going to start with a two-parter with a gal from my past. But, you know, it being the end of the year, we do that thing where we arbitrarily pick the end of December as the time to reflect on how our year has been and on where our lives are going. And, you know, it's been a year for me. This really has been a year of growth and change. And it's been a year for me of a lot of rough spots. I've had some difficulties with finances at times in the year. I had a really bad breakup back in February. I had a huge blow up situation, which I think I alluded to in that LA live show, you know, with my XP. All right, and there was that big situation on Facebook, and that caused me to, lose some friends and lose some communities. But I also learned who my friends are. And I also learned that there's a community that does care about me in comedy and in Hacienda. This was a year where I really took steps to grow in how I respond to criticism. You know, when the whole Kevin Hart debacle happened, I don't think the tweets were as much of the problem as much as Kevin's response to the criticism. And I've learned that through my many, many missteps in getting called out or getting into arguments on Twitter or whatever. I've been learning how to respond. I've also been learning when to just not respond. And that's been a big step for me. And I know some of y'all are tired of hearing about my like drama with, you know, various sex educators or whomever on the internet. So I'll try to stay away from that, but just, you know, I still get a lot of the random stuff like that. people who like tweet at guests of the show, and a different version of me would have wigged out, would have spiraled into depression, would have gone to a big fight. And I don't. I've been really learning to see haters for what they are, a sign of success. And I have people in my life I can trust to come at me and call me out with concern instead of contempt. I've also been growing with this podcast. In 2017, I did 1 live show. In 2018, I did 2 live shows. And I'm hoping in 2019, I'm doing multiple live shows and some other really cool, stunt episodes like my episode at Desire or the Blow Your Way to Brooklyn episode. I've got some really cool ideas in the works. This was also the year that I started selling merch, right? I got my t-shirts, my panties, my buttons, which you can all get at gumroad.com/manwhorepodcast, right? I got to partner with really cool brands like hotmovies.com and Tushy, which I gifted my father, to which he responded like, I'll think about you every time I take a crap. I got to go to work with Desire Resorts. That was holy shit. It's just been a cool year as a guy who works for himself, building a thing and taking y'all on this journey with me. Romantically, I had the big breakup. I think I call them S. I forget if there was a code name for that girlfriend, but that ended. But then things with Kenzie, who you've heard on the show now a little bit, that's blossomed and become something special to me, and she's become a very important person in my life. ManWhoreCon, Jesus, like that, the most measurable growth. ManWhoreCon, this beautiful weekend that caused me to ugly cry in the middle of the streets of New York City because I was so fucking happy. I remember the first ManWhoreCon in 2017. We had 9 people. And not to put that, the 9 people are not to be put down, but I was initially disappointed in the beginning of the weekend. And then it just became killer. This year, we tripled attendance. We had 27 or 28 people at ManWhoreCon. We had a standing room only live show. I remember the first ManWhoreCon. We're on the pub crawl. We're at McSorley's, and it's just the 10 of us at this table. Again, we don't even look like we're a con. We just look like some friends who got together. And everyone's just like talking. And then this one woman, Aubrey, she says, Billy, like, we're so excited for next year, but we're a little disappointed because we know it's just going to get bigger. And it's not going to be as intimate as this weekend is. And I was like, what are you? And everyone was agreeing. I'm like, are you all fucking crazy? Like, this isn't going to be, who would want to pay to come hang out with me for a weekend? And lo and behold, the next year, attendance tripled. She kind of got to say, I told you so. And really humbled me. Because the other thing that's grown in 2018 has been this community of listeners, of fan whores, of you and me, of sex positivity, As the political climate gets more and more antagonistic towards our ilk, we've come together. The community in the Champagne Room and in the Peep Show have grown and blossomed. Friendships have developed. People have dated each other from these groups. People have found comfort and solace when they otherwise felt alone in whatever rural buttfuck place they live in. Because they know that whatever, is going on in their little town, there's a community of people who think like them, where it's safe to ask questions or share stories. And that's so fucking cool that I am somehow finding myself at the center of it. Because building community was not the purpose or goal, and yet that's what happened. And this was the year I also started therapy. This is the year that I've truly tried to take a look at the gambling. I know that's not a thing I talk a lot about here on the show, and I don't know when the day is going to come that I'm ready to fully dive into it. Without giving too many specifics, I'm sure he's going to figure out who he is very easily. But there's a friend of this podcast who is also a dear friend of mine. And she has a show of her own. She has a Patreon of her own. We actually have a lot of shared listeners. We have a decent chunk of shared patrons. And we were getting coffee and co-working, and she we mentioned like someone who we know supports both of us on Patreon. She shared how much he's pledged to her, and I'm sorry if I'm talking out of school. Please no one like yell at anybody over this. But it was like more than what he pledges for mine. I think it was like double or triple what he gives me was what he gave her, even though he'd been listening to my show longer. And like I was like half annoyed, not really, but like I was curious. And she said that he had told her that it's because it doesn't always sound like I'm trying to get better. Like I'm kind of stagnant in my personal growth. And that definitely struck a chord with me. Definitely. Like I do not want to be someone who's not changing, even when sometimes for the worse. You always want to be changing and ideally improving. And I keep that in the back of my head a lot, because if y'all can tell, if y'all can sense that, then that's something I need to look into. I got into therapy and I've done some other things, and it's been a great 2018, ups and a lot of downs, but I've been learning from the downs, and that makes the downs worth it. So thanks for being with me on this quest. I love you all so much. I'm looking forward to a kick-ass 2019 with all of you. And, I would love to know about your growth. It's so interesting when I meet some of you, or if I hang out with you at like ManWhoreCon, or if I'm traveling in a city near you and we grab a drink. You all know so much about me. I know like nothing about most of you. So, shoot me an email. Let me know how you've been growing. How has 2018 been a year of growth for you? I'd like to know. And, maybe I'll share a few on the show next week or something. But I hope everyone has a great New Year's Eve. I hope it's sexy if you want it to be sexy. I hope it's safe. Please don't drink and drive. Please, please, please. Now, before I get to my conversation with Rachel Green, which is so much fun, I just want to take a quick, brief second to do the fan whore appreciation moment. Oh, yeah. This is the part of the podcast where I like to give a shout out to some of the members of my fan whore community on Patreon. This awesome community that has developed around the show. And they are also the people who keep this show financially viable and making this something I can do full time, which is really awesome. So I want to give a shout out right now to Parker B. I know it was a one and done month, but hey, it was fun while it lasted. It was nice to have you in there for a brief minute. Okay. Shout out to Vera. Hey, Vera. Vera sounds like such an in-charge name. Like Vera is in charge of the bedroom. I dig it. You all know how I feel about a leading lady. Thank you so much for your membership and your support. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to the Sensitive Nice Guy Show with Jordan Rockwell. Thanks for being such a nice guy and being a member. Oh yeah. Let's go kick ass. And you too can become a member for as little as $1 per month. Being a member gives you access to private sex positive discussion groups, exclusive bonus episodes of the Man Whore podcast, including a bonus episode with Rachel Green that comes out tomorrow, and oh so much more access to yours truly. All you have to do is head on over to patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. And now for this week's guest, Rachel Green. Rachel Green is an actress and stand-up comedian here in wonderful New York City. And, I have seen her on like my Facebook and on my social media a lot because, obviously we're a couple of comics, and just, it's always, a lot of times it tends to be like pretty sex positive stuff, socially conscious stuff. Sometimes her titties are out, like she seems like a like-minded person. I was like, I got to talk to this woman And we actually ended up being on the same comedy show at QED like a month ago. And we talked for like 10, 15 minutes. It was like, oh, clearly you need to come on. So we had a great chat. She told me about being a club kid here in the city in the 90s. We talked about poly and becoming not poly and a whole bunch more. So let's just go ahead and get to my chat with Rachel Green. You seem like a little bit more like kind of like retired hoe vibe though.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today. Well, we could talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, sadly.
Wait, so like, but you would like to be, or
Are we recording this?
yeah?
Okay. No, I kind of there's some days that I miss being a full on hoe. I mean, I'm still a hoe in my essence. Hoe for life. I just want to be a hoe with one person at this point. Or preferably, I still have friends that I call, but doing the parties is they're tempting. They're so tempting. And I still get invited from time to time, but I think my poly friends know that for the most part, I'm not really poly anymore. And like we had talked about when we were on that show together, I got to run into a lot of them recently because a friend had passed. And it was really great to see everyone because these are people that I genuinely love and respect. I'm just not as inspired as I used to be to like go fuck them all in a room.
Sure. But like, so you
I
use
can
that?
curse, right?
Yeah, it's the Man Whore Podcast.
Just
We're going 2 minutes, 15 seconds. We already haven't brought up rim jobs. I'm kind of disappointed. No, yeah, well, it's a good time to say I'm here with like, comedian and actress Rachel Green.
hello.
Hello. You identified as poly back in the day, or?
Yeah, I would say up until even maybe 4 years ago, maybe.
And do you consider yourself not poly now, or do you consider yourself not practicing?
I guess you could say not practicing, or for me,
I want to know how you feel. It doesn't matter how I classify it.
well, it's one of those things that at this point, I would much rather find one partner. If I find said partner and we fall in love and start to create a relationship, and then we decide that being open is something we want to create together, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I'm not seeking that in particular.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's not a non-negotiable for me anymore. It used to be a non-negotiable.
Yeah, you're like, I need this in my life, and now you're like, I can take it or leave it.
Yeah, it's kind of like baggy jeans. I swore like I would never grow out of that, and then I did. I swore I would never grow out of poly, and I did.
I thought I would never get out of baggy jeans, and someone introduced me to 2% spandex in jeans, and I was like, oh wait, I can do.
Yeah,
the jeans that get stretchy.
Yes.
It's like
I just never heard that from a man.
I can do squats and yeah.
You just did a squat. That was amazing.
These are fantastic. Well, the first time.
Do those have spandex?
Yeah, just it's like 1 or 2%.
Yeah,
like whatever flex fit or whatever.
Yeah.
That was
good stuff.
It was the nice way of them saying like, do your thighs rub? And I'm like, yeah. Like we have flex fit. I'm like, that sounds like me.
Look, I walk through a lot of my jeans, so.
Oh, yeah.
You just walk right through them.
When was the last time you like went to went to a party?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I mean, technically, I swear there was this was actually a really lovely experience. So when I was on tour in Vegas,
touring
comedy.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jack, the stripper, and I took our show, The Venus Flytrap, and we did San Francisco, LA, and Vegas. And when we went to Vegas, friends of mine that have a great house, that they have tons of parties, both like kind of burner, sexy time, whatever. And I had never been to the actual house. I'd been out at Burning Man with them. We went on a Costa Rica trip, community of friends, called Freedom Community that I'm a part of. That's all about like freedom and whatever that is to you. And that can look a lot of different ways. You could be a burner. You could be very sex positive. You could be an artistic person. And oftentimes people fall in all of those categories. And it's just badass people that try to be good people, live life with some integrity and try to be awesome. Anyway, there was a couple of us that were going to be in town at the same time. And so they were like, yeah, of course you can stay with us. And we're going to come see your show. We love you, blah, blah, blah. Awesome. And then it was like, well, you're in town and so-and-so's in town and so-and-so's in town. So we're just going to throw a party. I said, cool. Now I thought just party. And then I get the text message when I'm sort of en route from LA to Vegas that they're like, well, if you get here late, just be warned that there probably will be naked people on drugs. And I was like, cool. I was like, did I just get like surprise invited to a play party?
Right.
And I was kind of excited about that. And when I got there, you know, these are some really intentional folks. So it was like they were stating their intentions about, you know, their experience on whether it was psychedelics or, you know, MDMA or whatever they wanted to do to really have it be a meaningful experience. And I was like, these are my people. Because that's the kind of play parties I used to go to, where it's like there would be a welcome circle, you know, what's your intention? What do you want to get out of the evening? What are your boundaries? And what's your status? You know, blah, 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 fluid bonded, not fluid, you know, all the fun terms, right?
Yeah.
We're laying it all out on the line. We're being brutally honest. And now we know what we're playing with. And now we can just go nuts, you know, or not go nuts, you know, depending on whatever you choose and who you choose and how you want to do it. You know exactly what you're dealing with. And I was like, this is brilliant. So anyway, so it was that vibe of a party. So I was like, love people. And it actually really wasn't a sex party. It was like a sensual party where like people were on, you know, like, you know, people were doing whatever they wanted to do, whatever substance they wanted to take in a very responsible way. And I was just like, I got to like make out and like cuddle. And, you know, I played a little bit with one person and it was just like, it felt just, like I just felt like I was like loved and adored. And that was when I was really active in the poly scene. That was also why I would prefer going to a poly party than going to like a swinger party. Because I did always feel that there was it was much more intimate. And these were people who like genuinely wanted to like get to know me and care about me. And it would be fine to like just cuddle and make out. And, you know, there wouldn't be like, oh, we didn't fuck. Yeah, we didn't have a good party. It's, you know, different mindset.
Yeah. I rarely hear good stories out of like swinger parties because those seem like the mainstream point of view on sex. Go to swinger parties, and then these like poly burner or whatever parties, anything where if they call it a play party, that's always like my first indication like this might be like where I want to be, because people who are, you know, have like a more traditional mindset on sex, they'll call it like a sex party, and who knows, but it's like, oh, we're having a play party. We're like, okay, let's see what you're about. But they're more alternative, and they're open to like having a good sexual time that's cuddling and making out, or just a hand job, as if just a hand job is this terrible thing, right? Don't you find it crazy that some guy goes like, I went with this chick and she only blew me. I'd be like, only blew you? That sounds awesome. He's like, yeah, but we didn't fuck. I'd be like, who cares?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll fuck next time.
Yeah. And you know, I don't know. You're right. I have sort of become this weirdo, not weirdo, but sometimes I feel like sort of far into myself. Even like today, I went to the gynecologist, right? And she was like, oh, Rachel. She's like, you're either all sex. She's like, because she, you know, I had a scare a couple of months ago where I did have a threesome. And the couple, they weren't even a couple. They were these people I met the guy at a party. We were way intoxicated. I was like, okay, he and I might hook up or just hang out or whatever. And then he invites this woman over. And then next thing I know, I'm having a threesome. I was like, okay. But it really was not very good. I wasn't really into it. But I was sort of like, all right, well, these people are like sort of idolizing me and putting me on this pedestal. And I wasn't mad about it. But he double dipped. He double dipped. And I was like, what the?
With the same condom? Is that what
No,
you're referring to?
with his finger.
Oh, his finger. Okay.
Yeah. No, that I definitely.
I mean, I just wasn't sure. Yeah.
No, you're right. That's a fair question. No, he like double dipped with the fingers. And I was like, what the, you know. And I'm sure, you know, worse things have happened and I've not been aware of it, blah, blah, blah. But I think it was the fact that I didn't know these people. And I think if I looked in my phone, I don't remember what his name is because I was so not into the experience that I was like, I don't really ever want to see these people again. Anyway, so I got tested twice because I was like, I just want to make sure, I didn't put myself at risk for anything. So I went to the gynecologist today for like the second checkup. She's like, well, how's it going? And I was like, I don't think I've had sex since that night, actually. She's like, oh, Rachel, you're all or nothing. You either are no sex or crazy sex. And I was like, yeah, that's about right.
That's such an intimate relationship you have with your
She's
gyno.
the best. She's the best.
I've never had anything resembling that relationship with a doctor.
I think because women have to get, we have to, even though everyone has HPV, we're the ones that can get cervical cancer. So we have to be really cautious about it because if we do get a kind that, escalates into scary land, then, you want to be able to have frank conversations with that person. And, yeah, I mean, probably when you're older.
Yeah, when I start getting the prostate
I was going to
checks,
say, when you have to start going to a proctologist.
Is that when he's going to get like all friendly? I'll be like, oh, mister, come on, get a third in there.
He's going to be like, oh, what'd you do last night?
I'll be like, someone did what you're doing in a more fun manner.
Exactly.
It's like we could have done this differently.
No, it's good to have doctors where you can be, honest about who you play with and how.
I mean, maybe it's partially because I didn't have the opportunity to be very picky about who my doctors have been in the last few years because I just had like Medicaid, so it's not like I was like shopping for doctors.
Yeah.
But like I would end up doctors with like pretty like sex negative, shitty, slut shamey like attitudes.
Yeah.
When I had a girlfriend and we were non-monogamous, that was a fucking thing. I had to teach a doctor what that meant.
Yeah.
And or when I have to fight for like getting an oral swab for oral chlamydia, oral gonorrhea, like they like argue with me about it, and I'm just like, I'm asking for a test that like other doctors who are in the poly scene highly recommend because they understand the dynamics that are involved. And I don't know, I wish I could have one where it's like someone who's kind of fun, friendly about it and be like, oh, you're just this or that, as opposed to be like, well, your lifestyle's a problem.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not the only one that loves her because there's like like women comedy private Facebook groups. Well, private in quotes, right?
Right. I mean, y'all have almost as many leaks as the Trump administration.
Yeah, pretty much. So I've heard and seen recently. So I don't say anything too personal there, but yeah, there was like, we also will randomly ask each other like, oh, who has a good blah, blah, blah. And several women were like, oh, she's the best. And I was like, oh, sweet. Yeah.
Have you had have you had doctors who tried to make your sex life more like a symptom or your sex life was a problem and try to advise like, well, we'll do these tests, but hey, it would be better if you just like weren't fucking?
I mean, she herself has grown in the time I've gone to her. I think she in the past, not that she would shame me, but she would kind of be like, you're exposing yourself to blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, yep. And she's like, okay. Like it was not shamey, but it was also kind of like she was, I guess, doing what doctors would do and being like, you are putting yourself in a high risk situation.
Well, I want a hoe doctor. I want a doctor who's like also kind of a hoe, because not only will they like not judge me on like my lifestyle, but they'll also like know the things that are at play that I should be doing or getting checked or whatever.
I had a hoe therapist.
Ah, nice.
She's the best. And there's plenty of other hoes out there that go to her. So that was crucial for me.
Is that like the comedian therapist, like that old couple who like half the professional comics of New York go and see?
Oh God,
have you heard about them?
No.
Oh, there's this old couple, and they're both
terrible.
Therapists. I think they like work on a sliding scale, so a lot of comics would go to them.
Oh my God.
But because they see so many comics, especially ones who
they're probably
become
like, shut
professional.
up! I've heard this. Get out of your head.
Yeah, I've heard they're pretty rough, but like in a good way. And they also get the lifestyle of a comedian. Like they get all this
cool.
stuff. Yeah.
No, what that sounds terrible. What was so cool about my therapist was that, and I sought her out.
Sure.
Because I tried this one lady once and I had to explain to her what poly was and just everything. And I was like, ugh. And after 6 sessions, she's like, I think you're complete. And I was like, I don't think that's how this works. Like, okay. And someone pointed out to me, they're like, nah, right, she just couldn't handle you. She just didn't get the whole scope. And so she made it seem like, okay, cool, I'm moving on. But then this woman, I sought her out, and like literally within the first, and this was the consultation. Within 5 minutes, she's like, so what's your preferred pronoun? And I was like,
This is
you're my girl.
Mhm.
You're my girl. And, should I call you girl?
Yeah.
But no, she works with sex workers and poly folks and folks into BDSM. And I mean, it actually got to one point where we were having a session, and I was in the course of my therapy deciding for myself if BDSM was a non-negotiable for me. And then I was like trying to blah, 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 feel that out more. And like, oh, should I go to more parties or munches or whatever? And she goes, I want to address something. And I was like, okay. She goes, what would you like to be our protocol if we see each other at a party?
I was
And
about
was
to say, that's the type
I
of
was like,
therapist I
"This is
want.
amazing." Yeah. So I was like, I don't know, high five. Or just like, hey, what up? I don't know. It never happened, but I just thought that was so cool.
But that's exactly the type of person I want. And you have no, like, I get so many, like, I've gotten a lot of emails asking where to find like a poly friendly or like a queer friendly or kink friendly therapist.
She's kind of all
And those,
that.
yeah, it's like that's such a key thing to people find. Like it's the little things. Like if like she asks you your pronouns, like is it a thing I need? No, but that's a hint. That's a key. That's a signal that like, oh, this is my type of person that I want.
Exactly.
Around. It is funny to run into each other thing because I've run into I've run into some comics at like sexy type parties.
Yeah. I did a poly comedy show, which made me very,
Yeah,
very
you
happy.
did the one at Hacienda?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff. I ran into Jeff at a Hacienda.
Yeah.
I at least knew he was going to be there because we were at an open mic. He goes like, Billy, I'm going to my first Hacienda. And like, there's always a part of you that's like, oh, congrats. That's great. But in my head, I'm like, look, I'm the fucking comedian at that Hacienda. Okay. So back the fuck off. And then, but those are fun. Or like, I have a partner who like she's poly. She's out on the West Coast at grad school in like a very small like college town or whatever. And she went to some like poly meetup type thing and ran into like her like advisor or like some sort of coworker type thing there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And she was like really nervous, like, I don't know what to do. And then it was just more like, hey, you're both there. So you're on the same level.
Yeah. I mean, there's been times where, because although I've dated women, I tend to enjoy more play with women than actually being in relationships with them. It's just sort of like I'm open to it. It's just in my experience, it hasn't worked as well as, emotionally with a dude. Right.
Sure.
But, I'll occasionally go to like a gay bar with my cousin, be her wing woman. It's kind of fun. And I will like occasionally run into people who I know from like, my day job or, I used to do Landmark, right? And they're like, what? Like they're just, and I'm like, yeah, hi. I'm here. What's up? Hi. Because I'm not like necessarily, I'm not hiding the fact that I'm bi, but I'm not like screaming it from the rooftops. And so, yeah, I think for some people, they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, hi. Mm-hmm. So, what's up?
Well, when did you first start like delving into like the non-monogamy world?
It was probably around. I mean, the thing is, I had my first threesome when I was like 17. So
Okay.
and I lost my virginity when I was 14. So I was always super sexual. And I was a hoe in high school. I was like the hoe that everybody like respected. Like I was like down ass Rachel, like I could like smoke blunts and kick freestyles.
Where'd you grow up?
Long Island.
Oh, then what the fuck accent was
Whatever. I thought I was a little chola,
that?
Yeah. I mean, that particular accent only lasted maybe like a couple of years.
Do you have cornrows? I feel
In
like
college,
I feel
I did
like I
for a
can
little
see
bit.
you with cornrows. I can see it.
I was more like the old school hip hop, like Mary J. Blige. So like I would cut the top out of my hat and pull my ponytail through, and I had the baggy jeans and the door knocker earrings and the red lipstick.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I'll show you a
Ooh,
picture
that
later.
is
Yeah.
trash-tastic.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, and then I was like a club kid, so I was like daytime chola, nighttime white trash whore.
Wait, what like can I cuz I don't know how old you are. Is like was this like the 90s or early 2000s?
Yeah, it was the 90s.
So, oh my god, so this whole club kid era fascinates me because I've heard about it,
I
right?
went to the Tunnel, the Palladium, Roxy, Limelight, all that shit. It was amazing.
I mean, I lived in the Palladium, if that counts.
That fucking dorm.
I mean, it's an NYU dorm now, but it used to be a nightclub with tons of cocaine. I just feel like when I lived at Palladium, I just felt like if I reach in the right like hole in the wall, I'm gonna find like a big bag of coke.
Yes.
You know, just that's been there for decades.
Or Funkmaster Flex's soul. I don't know. Yeah, oh man, it was a good time.
But
Good.
what was that? So tell people what the club kid. What is that?
It was just a different era.
Mm-hmm.
The nostalgia that's around it, I mean, is probably how some people feel about like 70s New York or 80s New York, depending on, what their scene was. For me, I don't know, my dad was on Broadway as a musician. So my parents had always exposed me to Manhattan since I was a little kid. So I just always knew I was going to live here and all that stuff. And then, friends of mine brought me to the Tunnel when I was 16 for my 16th birthday, and I had my fake ID, and I was like, yeah. And it was just, some of it was the sheer size of it, because the Tunnel was literally between 27th and 28th and between 11th and 12th. Like that entire block was the entire club. Can you imagine? I mean, that's tremendous.
Anyone who doesn't know New York, like it's a huge, it's the Avenue blocks, because it's an Avenue block or a regular block.
Both.
Not. So yeah, these are that's a massive amount of space. Like
because it was an old shipping tunnel. It was where the boats would come in, and then all the stuff would get transferred to the High Line. Like I think through the literal tunnel. So I mean, it was gigantic. And if you like different kinds of music, like they had the basement, they had hip hop with like Stretch Armstrong and Bobbito and Funkmaster Flex, and then on the middle floor they would have like crazy house music, like the movie Kids. Yeah, they filmed that inside the tunnel, and there was like a cage with like motorcycles. Like just the sheer size and scope of it was like just mind blowing. Right. And then like the third floor, they had like a fuzzy room. Well, no, it was at the end of the tunnel. They had like a fuzzy room that played trance. And then upstairs they played techno. And there was like the first unisex bathroom and people fucking in the bathroom. And it was just like, it was like grime and dirt, but also like fabulousness. And I don't know.
And is everyone just like sweating and doing drugs and finger blasting? Is that like, because that's just how I imagine between Kids and the other movie everyone I think points to is Party Monster, right?
Oh, I don't think I ever saw that.
That's the one with Macaulay Culkin. It's about that dude who, like, I don't know, like he murdered his like drug dealer boyfriend. He was like the big club kid or whatever.
There was a lot of drugs. I wasn't as much into the drugs. I mean, I was the kind of kid that like I tried all the drugs, but I wasn't like, oh my God, every weekend. That was like college.
Okay.
No, college was where I did like, we called it ecstasy back then.
Sure.
Where my sophomore year of college, it was like every weekend, just like, oonks, 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 oonks. That was a different kind of party.
Yeah. But that whole club kid era, it seems like really sexual and fun and deviant. And
it was great. And I was friends with a lot of the security guards.
That'll help.
So I got to see a lot of like special hidden rooms and bathrooms and things like that. There was one time, and I actually have a joke about it, where there was a Junior Vasquez was like the hottest house DJ, and this was at the Palladium, and he had his own DJ booth that literally only he could use. But of course, the security guards had the key to it. Okay. So the head of security takes me up there, goes down on me. Thank you very much. I come back downstairs. I look for my friend. Can't find her. I go about my business. I get a drink. I'm dancing, whatever. 20 minutes later, she comes running up to me. She's like, oh my God, I just kissed Ali and he tasted like pussy. I started laughing and she's like, bitch, what the fuck are you laughing at? And I was like, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
How did it taste?
Well, dude, how'd she answer?
And the joke I usually say, oh, it was a little sweet, a little cinnamon, a little cayenne pepper.
Fantastic.
But Yeah, it was a good time. Anyway, I'm total tangent to your
No,
question.
that's fine. Well, I didn't realize because it just happened. It doesn't even have to do with sex much. I'm just always like, I'm fascinated by this era in New York's history.
Yeah.
Where it had all these Limelight. That was the one where it was a church,
Yeah.
but they just turned into a nightclub, and now it's like some kind of mall.
Yeah.
So that era just fascinates me. But I find that like there's a lot of sexuality around that whole atmosphere and the people. So did you find that had anything to do with like you exploring these like other worlds, the burner world and poly world or anything?
Well, I would say that when I found the burner and poly worlds, I was like, oh, people like me. Right. It just made sense. You know, whereas like when I was the club kid, I had like my close friends that would go with me, but to the rest of the normies, as you would say, you know, like the rest of my friends per se, like they would sort of like live vicariously through me or be like, oh, Rachel, wow, you know, and they, you know, I tell stories. And so then when I found like, I guess it was around 2005 or 6, a friend of mine, I met her through a women's group and she sort of introduced me. I was actually into Reiki at the time, like energy healing.
Okay.
And so I trained her in that and we did like a healing session for someone in the community who was sick out on the West Coast, and it was like a beautiful thing. And we're out to dinner, and then next thing I know, they were telling me about Burning Man and polyamory, and my eyes were just like, whoa. I was like, oh, what? Yeah. There's people like me in the world? And I was just, you know, I was blown away because I was like, oh, this is normal in some communities to be very sexual, very sensual.
What did you think you were before that?
I guess I just didn't have a label for it.
But like, were you cool with that? I mean, did you have other people who were like you? Did you just accept you were alone? Or what?
Well, the thing was, I guess in high school, I was the slut that people respected because I had respect for myself, and I was the down ass bitch, and I was one of the homies, and you know, it was just like, oh, Rachel just likes to fuck, you know, and so there would be one dude and then his friend, and then next thing, you know, back at the school, you know, in the truck, or sometimes it was a hotel room. I mean, sometimes it was classy, sometimes it was, you know, somebody's basement, and you know, I'm stripping to Genuine's pony, and sure. You know, and yeah, I mean, it was like the most vanilla threesomes you could think of because it was always me and 2 men. And
it sounds like high school, right?
This was high school.
Yeah, I mean, high school, like, I'd be surprised if they were competent threesomes. You know what I mean? Like,
it literally was just like, you know, the most exciting that it got to was, you know, maybe, what do they call it? An Eiffel Tower, you know? I've been getting like advice emails recently from like high school girls. Uh-huh. And then always my first like thing is like, well, also you're both in high school. So this is going to be bad. Like this sex problem is just going to be bad because this is high school sex. So honestly, I had some pretty good sex in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like these, you know, I got some really good head, and you know, but it was all very vanilla, but just with 2 people. Sure. And for me, I was like, well, obviously these dudes were super straight, so they weren't, you know, so I was just the center of attention. So I loved it. I was like, oh, this is great, you know, you know.
Where'd that all come from? Like started fucking around at 14 and getting.
I found my dad's porn when I was 8.
Okay.
I think that's probably where it all came from. Like he had a dark room, because he was, you know, he had like a photography hobby / second job. And he had this like one of those big Craftsman tool boxes, like the real big ones. Mm. And I guess it was just you know, kids love little nooks and crannies, right? I'm an only child. So sometimes I would just like spend time in the closet or in the dark room, just like fucking around, you know, playing imaginary. And one day I just like opened up one of the drawers and I see like, I don't know, tits and ass or Hutzler, and, you know, kind of combing through, and like makes me feel a little funny in between my legs. I don't know what it is. I don't really get it, but it's like, okay, cool. I know it's probably not allowed. I go back, and then it graduated to, I found his VHS tapes. Mm-hmm. And then it was like Debbie Does Dallas. And I was like humping the couch and, you know, watching the movie. And I knew it was like wrong, in quotes, right?
And you have to masterfully rewind it to whatever point your dad was watching it.
Thank you for getting that.
Absolutely. I still remember VHS.
Yeah. So, and I was always like really mature. I'm an only child, so I always had older friends. So I was like, oh, well, they're doing that. I want to do that. And yeah, my first time having sex was awful.
Yeah.
Like awful.
I mean, you were 14. Like I said, like I just imagine most high school sex statistically is bad. And that's not because my high school sex was bad, because my high school sex didn't exist. So I'm just saying this objectively that all high school sex must be pretty bad. But why was this 14-year-old sex especially bad?
I have a story about it too, but I'll give you the short version. It, essentially, whatever, this dude and I were having phone sex for like 3 months. We had never even met.
You do know that doesn't count as fucking, right?
No,
I'm just checking.
Shut up. No, my friend was talking to this guy, and we found out that he was talking to somebody else.
And you crushed that Long Island accent.
It's
you
real.
buried it deep down inside yourself somewhere.
Some people say it comes out when I drink. Hopefully not, but we'll see.
So you and this guy are phone sexing.
Yeah.
Rotary phones.
Well, the thing was, I had called him because he was fucking with my friend. So I was like, yo, you don't know who you messing with. That's my best friend. I'm going to get my crew. We going to come fuck you up. But yeah, so then he was like, yo, Ma, you sound nice. And then we started having phone sex. And we had phone sex for 3 months. And then on President's Day, we decided that it was a good idea for him to come over and pop my cherry. So he and his cousin took a 2.5-hour bus ride across Long Island. And, you know, we put his cousin in the living room. My dad was in the basement editing wedding videos with his friend. And yeah, we went upstairs and put on some mood music. And he basically just, there was like hardly any foreplay.
Do you remember what the mood music was?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was trying to not tell you the joke word for word, but it's,
Oh, no,
it's
I'm
probably
just,
easier that
I'm
way.
genuinely curious.
Yeah, actually, it's quite funny. So I don't know if you remember the group Xscape. So they had a song that was like, kick off your shoes and relax your feet. Party on down to the Xscape beat. Just kicking. Just kicking. Well, that's cute, right? But then the second song on the album, which was actually, that was like the prelude. And then right as I'm getting like just poked, you know, because that's like that's all he did was just poke. And, you know, the hymen was like, ah, you know. The next song on the album, never had listened to it consecutively, was a song called You Gotta Keep It Pumping. Pump it up. So it's very romantic.
Very.
Yeah. And then I guess I got over that.
But what was the horrific part?
It was painful. It wasn't intimate. He was just ramming me with his hips. Like he was really skinny. So his hips were like digging into my legs and my hips. Like as he was just ramming himself into me. It was kind of just like, yeah, it was awful. Like he didn't know what he was doing.
And that didn't deter you from becoming the down ass bitch? Like I feel like there's some people who would be like,
You would think.
if that's what it is, this seems terrible. I'm surprised any like vagina havers who get fucked.
Vagina havers.
I've been steeped in gender theory conversations the last few days, so I'm surprised anyone who like gets fucked in like high school and then like has that cherry pop and it's so bad, just like that, then ever has sex ever for the next few years. I'm surprised I wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, that was her. I sipped a beer in grade school. I did not touch a beer till maybe I was like 17, 18, because I was just like, I remembered it being a really bad taste. And so I was like, I'm just not doing that. It deterred me for a decade.
My first kiss was really bad.
Yeah.
It was at science camp, and I was mortified and horrified because the dude slobbered all over my face. And then I met this other dude that night who comforted me. I was like, when it's with the right person, it'll be beautiful. And then later that night,
He was
kissed
the right
me.
person.
He was the right person. It was great. We made out the whole rest of the science camp. So I would say that it's probably a mixture of, I guess, knowing that it can only get better from there, and having other friends tell me like it's going to get better, and probably also just like having raging hormones. I probably just knew that something else was better and out there. I will say though, yeah, you know what? I wasn't necessarily rushing into the boyfriend that I had after him. Or no, God, the boyfriend I had during him. I cheated all the time in high school. Let me think
no,
about
Rachel.
This. But this was before I was in high school. I didn't know the concept of like integrity and like that. I think that was another part of the poly part that like really, was like attractive to me because I was like, oh, we could just be open about this instead of lying behind each other's backs. We could just be open about wanting to fuck other people. So yeah, the boyfriend that I had at the time, like he just always went down on me. And so like I knew that like just the fucking part was like just another thing, but like I really liked getting head.
All right.
And then the boyfriend that I had after that had like a really small penis, so sex was not painful at all.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, well we need to get a little bit bigger, and so then whoever.
And then you got the cornrows. You were like, I'm gonna find something bigger, maybe over here.
I only had him in college for like 2 weeks.
I mean, so when you're having all this sex in like high school, was it, were you also have it like with older dudes? Because you said you like.
I was a little bit of both. Sometimes it was peers. Sometimes it was older dudes.
Are we talking like older dudes who you could have put in jail older?
Yeah. My first threesome, the dude I was 17 and he was 27.
27.
Mm-hmm.
What was that about?
I used to videotape weddings with my dad and he was the DJ. Yeah.
You banged the wedding DJ.
I did. And his friend.
Okay. So,
not at the wedding. It was a later date.
So flash forward, like you're meeting these, you met your friend in like 05. You said like exposed you some of this like burner poly world and
yeah, so they took me to a party called Chemistry.
Yeah.
And it was
Chemistry's been around that long.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe it was 2006.
Even then, still, that's just we're talking a long fucking time.
Yeah. And it had already existed for a couple of years when I got to it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was at a place that doesn't exist anymore. Well, maybe it doesn't, just call it something. So it was at Grand Space, which is sort of like a loft co-living space in, I think, like Crown Heights. And yeah, I walked in and I was like, what? This is amazing.
There's sex right there. Those are boobs over there. This is cool.
Yeah,
what?
I was just like, make out with this one. And then there was one point in the party where they sort of like laid me down. And one person was kissing me and another one was massaging me. And then there was like a couple going down on me. I felt like I was like on like a human lazy Susan. It was amazing. So I was like, yeah, I've arrived. Like, this is for me.
I mean, I want to warn people that's not any women going to sex parties. That's not always going to, your mileage may vary, as they may say.
Yeah.
Or as they say on this, as on the sex worker message boards, why MMV? Who knows? Oh, it's been way too long since I've been on TER. I haven't gotten to use that phrase in forever.
TER?
TER is the erotic review, which was like basically like a Yelp for sex workers.
Oh.
There are some sex worker people who don't like it because they don't like that guys could leave negative reviews, but on the John side of it, it was immensely helpful and saved me a lot of money. But yeah, so they had all these like phrases and code words like, your mileage may vary, or the dine at the Y, DIY, I think was one, and it meant dine at the Y, which meant eating pussy. Meant that like the show let you go down on her. They had all these like little phrases. So I always said when I was in college and I just started getting like happy ending massages, I told myself, I was like, if I ever want to go to grad school, I was a communications major. I was like, if I ever went to grad school, I would want to do my thing on just like sex worker terminology because it's brilliant. Like I saw a Craigslist ad once that when I was like 21, and she advertised that like she sings both Billy Joel and Frank Sinatra.
Oh.
And I was like, that's so fucking smart. It's almost as if sex workers can be smart people too. It was wild. Did you pick up on what that meant? She sings Billy Joel and Frank Sinatra.
No.
Billy Joel, BJ, does blowjobs, which would be a separate rate from Frank Sinatra, full service.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, and the fact that like I didn't have to think about it too hard. Like I looked at the ad, I was like, I know what she said. That's what? How'd your mind trick me into that? That's crazy. You're fooling the cops left and right, I'm sure. But so stuff like the terminology around sex work like really fascinates me.
Well,
and
yeah,
all that
and
stuff.
nowadays, God, I mean, just for them to like stay safe and
Yeah.
also make money.
Well, you don't. So you've never done sex work, right?
I have not.
But it
I'm
seems
just
like
a huge ally.
yeah. I was gonna say it seems like you're almost like sex worker adjacent a little bit.
I am.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How'd you get tapped into that?
Well, Jack the stripper is my comedy co-producer, and she's a stripper, and she fights for sex worker rights across the board. And I thought I knew a lot. I already had sex worker friends through being exposed to
Poly Burner and all that.
Exactly, just having friends in that community that were sex workers, and I was like, well, you're awesome, and how can I support you? Just because, like, I don't know, I think some people forget that they're people. It's like they're people, and this is how they're supporting themselves, and like that's their choice. Who am I to say? And with Jack, like, I've learned a lot of terminology that I was not aware of,
Such as
swerve.
swerve, meaning.
God, I forget what it stands
Oh,
for.
it sounds like it's probably the same as turf.
Sex worker.
Exclusionary radical feminist.
There you go.
I just took a guess.
Yeah. No, and that's a really interesting kind of fucked up thing. Like you could fight for women's rights except for women who choose to do this. Like that's fucked up.
Yeah. Just because like your husband fucked one once, that's not her fault.
Well, who knows why these women are being dicks about it. No pun intended, but
Sure.
like feminism should not be exclusionary.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be trans exclusionary either. So yeah, turf and swerve. There you go.
Turf and swerve. No, that's actually I really love. That's my favorite lunch spot. Turf and swerve. You get fun facts about why trans women are really men with your burger. That's
God.
how the restaurant works.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
a side of.
I gave it only 2 stars on Yelp because like it's really really shitty what they do, but they do a good burger. So it's like I'm not gonna fault them on that. I just don't really like the marketing angle.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah, you just seem to have and one of the things that made me be like, I feel like I'm supposed to talk to this person because there's like you have a very sexual vibe. Your social media is like a sexual vibe. Your titties are like almost out all the time on that.
It's funny. So obviously through this podcast so far, you've learned that I've kind of always been a slut.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the way that I've expressed it has morphed over the years. And so, I guess sort of, because if you look at the beginning of my social media, it's not as much like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just an evolution of like, well, my personality is very sensual. My comedy is very sexual. Why am I not putting this out there and having fun with it? And I started thinking about like, well, what's my brand? And I'm like, well, I'm funny and sexy, and I think those things are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
I think you can be silly about my big old titties, like, because why not? And I talk about them. And yeah, so then, yeah, plus it's like, I'm all for body positivity.
Do you get pushback on the having like sensuality being a part of your brand as a comedian and actor? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't experienced anything as an actor, thank goodness, because I think I've been in the business long enough that people just respect my work, and they're not like, oh, Rachel, we can't cast you for this role because, you look like a hoe on social media. I think they're just looking at the number that's slowly but steadily growing, organically. And like, how they say, they're like, it's better to have 3,000 really genuine fans than 15,000 fans that are like fake, or don't give a shit about you. Like it's really
she's
beautiful.
a hoe, but people seem to like it.
but well, it's cool because I think, what we do with our show, between me talking about sex and in a very fun and proud way, not in a like, I'm not going to do self-deprecating jokes. Like, I tell jokes about, I fucked this dude with a strap on. And like, people are like, what? That's dope,
Yeah.
And Jack, very freely talking about her experience as a stripper. I think we're taking the stigma out of all that shit. And so for women and femme-identifying LGBTQ sex workers, like, it's just like a safe space. And people are like, oh, this is awesome. I can come here, feel safe and feel heard and spoken to, So there's a bigger thing happening that I'm really excited about, and people are really grateful for it.
Yeah. It's interesting in comedy because making this like this type of sex that like we have or had or whatever can be so unrelatable.
Yeah.
Like, but then it's like you say, like you're not doing self-deprecating. You're just gonna be like, yeah, I was doing this, I was fucking this dude, strap on, then this silly thing happens. Like, I will be like, I want to do my jokes about sex parties and make people and compare it to a normal party, so that it's not even a joke about a sex party. It's just jokes that happened at a sex party. That just happens to be where it was, and make it seem normal. Because like people get, you start with the sex party because the sex party is not the punchline. The fucking dude in the ass is not the punchline. That's not the funny
it ends
part.
up being a joke about coconut oil.
Exactly. It's just that's the setting. But for a lot of people, our normal setting is such an out there idea.
To be honest with you, a lot of the stories that I tell are not necessarily party related. And so,
I was just throwing like whatever, but like
no, but it's interesting because when I did delve, because I wrote like a whole new set for that Poly show that I did, and when I've tried to bring those jokes into like a, I could do them at the Venus Flytrap, no problem, but when I bring them into a vanilla room, I do get like, huh, what? What's she talking? Like confusion or a little bit like where, and. Yeah, I mean, shit, I'm probably not every comedy club's cup of tea. But the thing is, like, I don't know. Who's getting the laughs? Me. So, I don't know. You don't want to pass me? That's your bullshit. That's your hang up, I guess I'm dirty. And I hate that that's the fucking word that they use because then that implies that sex is dirty. And it's not. I think I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I try to write all the time and I try to make some of that not just sex stories. I try to make it, oh, this happened at the office today, or this happened with this thing and my roommate and whatever. And I do try to find things that are more relatable just because, like, I guess it is good to have a quote unquote clean set. I would hope that the world evolves enough that, in a few years we can do a late night show and I can talk about a fucking blowjob, or a fucking strap on. But we're not there yet. So it's like, I kind of feel like I'm always going to have my stories and jokes about sex, and it can't hurt for me to write what these idiots want.
Are you finding any difficulties right now online with social media and whatnot, having sexual comedy content where we're seeing more and more crackdowns on what we can put on what platform that has, like, my Instagram's disabled right now. Because it got disabled with like all the other like sex educators and some porn people who had them like all disabled on the same couple of days, just because it talks about sexuality, not because we put nipples, not because we said anything.
Femme identifying nipples.
Exactly, that too.
Oh my God.
It's like, yeah. So I at least like I'm seeing so many like different accounts and people not allowed to talk about it.
I guess I'm not big enough yet, because I've been getting away with my almost titty pictures and shots of my ass in slow motion. People are, it's really funny when comedians come up to me and they're like, Rachel, and I'm like, what? They're like, I was looking at your fucking Instagram at church, and I'm like, that was your mistake, problem, bro. Your ass just popped out. I'm like, dude, why were you looking at Instagram at church?
God's not mad about seeing the ass in church. God's mad you're on your phone in church. If there was a God, there isn't, so you're probably safe.
His phone just like turns into fire.
Don't you like he's sinning, but he wants to blame it on you?
Damn, your Instagram. I'm like, let somebody know. I'm like, I wasn't hiding anything. Wasn't hiding anything.
Yeah, I get that with like, I had a family member who got really mad about Instagram story I posted. I arranged a stranger play scene with this woman on Bumble, and it was basically I was going to go to like at 5 a.m, go to her apartment building, get the key she hid for me. She lived by herself. Sneak into her apartment, sneak into her bedroom, and before she's actually awake, start eating her pussy.
Oh, I had a guy want to do that once, and then I did some like, catfish searching, and I was like, dude, you live with your parents and you're really creepy. This is not happening.
Oh, no. Well, luckily,
But anyway,
luckily I passed that test. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna post this on Instagram, and it was just for that. This wasn't like a thing to fuck or to get. This was like simply like, I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna eat your pussy, so that while you're actually waking up, you're already feeling a sensation.
Oh wow!
Like fun, cool. Let's do this little stranger play thing. And then I'm posting on Instagram, and I post like a disclaimer in the story. There's this whole slide that just says, if you're related to me, like you may not want to tap further. Believe me on this. And then it's just like some things with me like in the Uber on the way there at fucking 4:30 in the morning, me getting up and going, being really excited because I love doing stranger play. It's like one of my favorite things to do. And so I'm like excited. I'm talking about what I'm going to go do and whatever. And then I get there and then I do a story like when I leave about how like, oh, no one died, like no one got murdered. It was fun. If you have a fantasy, go enact it in the safest way you can do it. But like you can do these wild things you see me post about and here on the podcast, blah, 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 right? And I get a fucking like angry as fuck text message from a family member who was just like, what you did was sexist and how dare you say this and how dare you talk about eating pussy, and I found that offensive. And I'm just like, I told you not to keep watching. That is your fault.
Yeah, the only time I get offended by the word pussy is when people use it when they act like someone's weak, and I'm like, pussy's pretty fucking powerful. Don't demean it like that. But eating pussy, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I was like, yo, what's offensive about what I said? I said I'm gonna go eat her pussy. I didn't. What that's the
wow.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. How do you like gain their trust?
I mean, I think the first step is not trying to, but rather than
right. That's a bad way to put it, but
no. But I think it's important because that's how like I'll get guys who ask me that type of question, or guys who ask me like, how do you get laid? And I say, stop trying to.
Oh my God, I had a conversation with a comic about this because he was watching my friend, and my friend is just super genuine, and he's a really, really good listener. Like he just makes genuine eye contact. He really is interested in getting to know you, right? And he wants to like, find out what's great about you and like make you laugh and have you have a good time and like.
What's your energy?
Well,
right, like,
but like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But it's genuine, right? And he's not about like, I have a strategy. And here is this comic sitting next to me like, oh, so what does your boy do? And he does this and that. And I'm like, it's not a strategy. That's the point. Like, you can't like take notes on it. That's his essence. And so he gets a lot of tail, if you want to call it that, right? Because women just like are like, wow, he really like, I've never been listened to like this. Like, I feel kind of aroused, It's like, make me laugh and listen to me. I don't know.
It's amazing how low the bar is
It's so
sometimes, But like, yeah. So with the stranger play stuff that I've done, like usually it helps that I'm never using a throwaway account.
Right.
I'm never hiding anything. I mean, that's the first step to not being trusted is hiding who you are. And someone's like, well, I don't want them to find out who I am. It's like, do you see now? It's like, it's fine if you want to not be transparent, but now do you see why this person's not going to put themselves in potential harm's way for someone who's not going to, go meet them in the middle? So I'm always using real names. I'm always sending, like I send a picture in the first message. Like I don't wait 5 messages to send you a fucking G-rated picture.
Right.
If anything, like the first response, like let's say it's Reddit. If it's a Reddit thing, like the first message I send has like, it's my name from my real account that has like all my whatever karma and my post history. That's not just sexual. It's like posts on our podcast and our stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
So it's like, they see that, good, it's a real person.
Yep.
They know first off, real person. I link to my Twitter just because one, I don't have Instagram anymore, so I can't link to that. But I'll like link to Twitter and like,
I know I tried to look you up on Instagram today and I was like, what the fuck is he?
I know I'm very mad about it. Working on it, but yeah, so like I'll link to Twitter and like my Twitter is verified, so like they know it's the real person thing.
Right.
But like I could have linked them to my Facebook and that would serve the same purpose. And also like I'm using my words, I'm using fairly decent grammar. I'm not typing with one, like it's okay if you want to do your first draft while you're jerking off, but then like after you like come and wash your hands, fellas, because look, I know what it's like. You're part of the jerk. Sometimes part of the jerking off is like scrolling through personals and random acts of Muff Dive posts on Reddit. Fine, but do you not know about random acts of Muff Dive?
No.
We'll talk. Well, I'll explain later. it like so sometimes like you can like get hard like swiping through an app or like going through personal ads because
fair
they're
enough.
sexy.
'Cause you're a dude.
Yeah, sure. But then it's like, if you want to respond to the ad, don't type it out and send while you're still hard. Like, wait till you've washed your hands, have your mind back, and then you can go proofread your draft and whatever. So I'm being transparent. I am giving a picture. I am respecting their time by like actually having full sentences and whatnot.
Yeah.
And also, like, I tend to have a history, so like I can send them links to other times I've met with women on the internet and didn't murder them.
Yeah.
And those all seem to work
That's
fairly
awesome.
well.
That's
Yeah.
very awesome. It's so funny because that was a thing about entering the poly world is like, you know, to so many people in my life, I was like this, whoa, she's doing this and this and this. And then, you know, and then over the years, I constantly get schooled on stuff and it makes me so excited.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't believe you didn't know about. Are you not like a Reddit person?
Not religiously.
That's
I
fine.
mean, I have it.
Sure.
I don't check it that often.
Well, it sounds like the old retired hoe Rachel Green would have liked the Random Acts of Muff Dive subreddit, which is exactly what it sounds like.
That's amazing.
It's just pussies matching pussies with mouths. It's really that's what that. There's a Random Acts of blowjob, and it's the same thing, right? So it's just like for people who just like I want to do this or I want to get my
I want to just go eat some muff.
yeah. And I'll just
Go-
post be like, hey, anybody before I go back home for Christmas, and maybe I get a response, and then I go eat
That's
out this
beautiful.
lady, and then I go get a pizza. It's like it's just part of the day.
That's amazing.
But but for me, like that's just part of my day, and it's so weird. So that's why I say like when I tried to go on stage, like I'm nervous about someone saying like, oh, here's another guy with a beard talking about pussy. I'll be like, in my defense, that's just how I spend my day. Like,
yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, they do say that relatability is what makes people laugh, but I think if you could make people understand what you're saying and somehow have like the sort of punchline be the part that's like what we were saying, how
the
my
mundane part,
right?
Yeah.
How my strap-on joke is actually a joke about coconut oil. Then they get it. You know, even if they're like sort of confused on the way. I mean, I did have a man from Texas threaten me after I told that joke the other day. Well, another thing was his wife was like apparently really into anal. So then I wanted to find out if he was into receiving as much as she was. So that was my way of going about it. And he was a bit offended. And I was like, what, sir? I was like, come on, you don't take a finger or two from time to time? And he was like, we don't be doing that down in Texas. And I have this really sharp glass right here and I'm not afraid to use it. And I was like, okay.
And it's so strange because like the court case that made anal sex legal came from Texas. So clearly y'all are doing it in Texas because
Deep in the heart of Texas.
deep in your heart of Texas, if anything. Oh, that's wild. And so now you're out hoping for the love. Are you looking for a relation? Are you looking for dating or are you not even?
Well, I can't say I've been actively sort of doing. I think that comedy and acting have sort of taken. I dated someone over the summer who I realized in hindsight I never really like asked the dude what he wanted. It just seemed like it was moving very quickly towards a relationship, and then things started to get weird. And I actually was like, dude, what exactly do you want? And then it turned out he had no interest in a relationship. It's just the way that he dated felt to me very not casual. You know what I mean? That's not how I would have, I don't know, whatever. The point was I didn't have a clear conversation, which I'm known for having really clear conversations. So it was just, I got caught in it. And I think since then I kind of, coming on this podcast, I was like thinking about it on the subway today. I was like, oh, this is going to come up. This is interesting. Oh my God. And then I went to the gynecologist and I started thinking about it and I was like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow. Yeah, I haven't really dated anyone since the summer and I really haven't even had that much sex. And I would like to stop that. So
You'd like to stop not having sex?
yes, correct.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
I would like to. There's a couple of people that I fuck kind of not regularly, but they're people I can call. And there's just been scheduling issues. And now I'm like, we got to eradicate this because this is bullshit. Like,
We need to clear some things out of the schedule.
yeah, mama needs her pipes clean. Okay. So let's just go.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do miss like intimacy, like, yeah. And having a relationship and, having a partner and a person to share with and have fun with. But it's like, I never found that person in the poly world. I don't want to be a secondary. It's just, I did it, been there, done that. Yeah. But I meet a lot of men who are just like not very smart, you know, or it's just not there. Chemistry, you know, like there's a thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you met a poly guy who didn't have like a primary relationship and he's like, I'm poly and I'm going to stay poly, but like, I want to date you or I fall in love with you. Is that something that you could see yourself in, or would you ask for like that window of monogamy?
I might like the window of monogamy, but I could also understand like if he had someone that he played with regularly, that he might want to continue that. And it maybe like
You're open-minded.
Maybe I would
It's
say
not-
like, oh yeah, I don't have any set rules. Maybe I would say like, hey, maybe don't establish anything new, but since you've already got this thing with this person, yeah, go fuck them. Just, you know, use your boundaries, you know,
Sure.
whatever barriers, blah blah blah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll keep my fingers crossed that you find the fellow hoe in your life that you need.
Aw, thanks.
You know. Do you have time for like another 10-15 minutes of like the little bonus content thing?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Rachel, for right now, where can people find you?
Well, my Instagram is
Oh, you get to keep your Instagram. Okay,
yeah.
that's
Well, for now, they haven't found out I'm a hoe yet, so it is the THE1, like the number. Rachel Green, RACHELGREEN. Yeah, so it's the one, the one. Because of stupid Jennifer Aniston's character on Friends.
Oh.
Her name was Rachel Green.
That's why I had a hard time looking some things up on you. I kept getting.
That's why I'll never have RachelGreen.com because of her fan page.
Hey, I'm a junior, so my dad has since like 2002 has had every iteration of Billy Procida. Like my website days are like I'm gonna have to ask in the will for one of the URLs. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well, yeah. So my website is rachelgreen.nyc. Because I was like, well, I'm a New Yorker through and through, and that's pretty cool. I used to be .info. That sounded kind of cheesy.
Sure.
Sounded like I was like, I don't know, like I was like a Wikipedia or something. I don't know. But I was like .nyc. That's kind of cool. Never gonna get .com, so I'm okay with it. But yeah. And then I think I'm the one Rachel Green on Twitter too. I'm not nearly as active on Twitter as I am on Instagram. I guess Instagram just feels like my thing.
all right.
I don't know. They say like it's fine to gravitate toward the one that you feel comfortable with.
I'm trying to be comfortable with that mindset because I miss my Instagram. I'm pissed because I never wanted Instagram. I fought against it for years. Didn't want it. Said, fuck that stupid. I can put my photos on Twitter. Then I fucking get it, and then I'm not happy about having it, but I have it, and I'm doing it, and then I actually start to like. Then I like it, but I'm pretending not to, and then I fucking really start to like it. I genuinely like to be on Instagram, and now I don't get to have it, so I'm really upset.
Aw.
But we'll see. But everyone, go check out Rachel's Instagram, and
Thank you.
if you are a Patreon member, tomorrow, if you're at the $5 up level, you'll hear our old bonus episode we're about to record.
Oh.
But for now, Rachel, why don't you say goodbye to everybody?
Well, thanks for listening, and I guess go have some fun, safe sex.
Was that fun? I thought it was fun, and I hope you thought so too. Again, go follow Rachel Green on the socials. Do that thing. And hey, I'm on Twitter as always at @TheBillyProcida. Say hello. Use the hashtag ManWhorePodcast. Share the show with the world. Let me know what you thought about this week's episode. You can find me on Facebook at the Man Whore Podcast. I post all sorts of great content over there that doesn't really lend well to the Twitter sphere. And of course, you can always email me when you got something a little bit bigger to say. Shoot me an email with the things I want to see in there. You know what it is. The email address is always manwhorepod@gmail.com. Send me what your growths of 2018. Doesn't just have to be titties. You can send me your growth. I would love to learn how you've become a better person in this year. Merch, people. Did you know I got merch? If you didn't, we got t-shirts, we got panties, we got stickers and buttons. Head on over to gumroad.com/manwhorepodcast. There's a link in the show notes. And if you're planning on what cool shit to do in 2019, I cannot recommend enough a trip to Desire Resorts or one of their wonderful cruises with Temptation Cruises. Desire Resorts is a beautiful Mexican resort. It is a couples-only, clothing-optional resort. I'm not allowed to say it's a sex resort. I'm not allowed to say it's a swinger place. I can only say it's clothing optional and couples only, and then you can do your own math. Killer. I think they have some promotional deals going on right now, so go take a look at that. And when you do, go there through manwhorepod.com/desire. All right, if you end up booking a trip, Billy gets a nice little kickback. Okay. Happy New Year once again, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed your holidays. And may all your Christmases stay slutty.